Welcome to who's ever on the other side of the screen. And I must apologize for taking so long to get to the next video, but sometimes life and your other projects get in the way. But here we go. Today we're going to be talking about these strange comics. Again, you won't find them in the price guide. And here's a sampling of them. These comics are from the late 40s up to the time of the Comic Code. They're Canadian, and I refer to them as hybrid comics. You've got comics with images on the cover from some American comics, from some splash pages, and they're given brand new titles. So here are some examples. Crack Adventures, Asia Comics with Rula on the cover. Lariat Comics, which has no corresponding title, I don't think, in the States. And then Jungle Joe. Red Hot. Jungle Drums. Surprising. And this one you recognize, Mr. District Attorney, same cover as the American issue, number 10, but inside, strangely enough, it has a Batman story from Batman 54 called The Amazing Masquerade. So that's a sampling of what you'll find. It's a mishmash. We'll talk a little bit about them today. As you know from previous videos, the reprint era in Canadian comics started in 1948 and lasted until the time of the Comic Code. American comics were banned in Canada, again for a second time, just as they were in the wartime period. But this time, the government allowed reprinting of American comics, which gave publishers a bit more of a window and really didn't allow for us to develop our own Canadian stuff, as well as we had during the wartime period when even reprints were banned completely. So this discouraged the development and startup of companies to produce new original Canadian comics. So reprints it was. And of the old wartime publishers, only 2 really continued into this reprint period. We had 4 in the old wartime period, Maple Leaf in Vancouver, Educational Projects in Montreal, but these 2 ceased putting out comics by the end of 1946. On the other hand, Bell Features and Anglo-American picked up in 1948 and started putting out comics, but mainly reprint comics. Anglo-American relied on its long relationship with Fawcett Publications in the States and concentrated on the reprinting of the Marvel family titles and Fawcett Western, and produced no real hybrid comics. So it was Bell Features, that Toronto company, which sometimes used a couple of the old mastheads from the old wartime period, such as Active Comics, Triumph Comics, and Dime Comics mastheads, when they reprinted some American comics. And they seem to come up with the idea of slapping brand new titles on reprinted American comic covers and really coming up with previously unseen cover pages or cover images by using splash page images from the inside of the comics. It also seemed to have a more eclectic reach concerning the American companies it chose to print in Canada, and published comics from Fox, from Quality, from MLJ, and Marvel. The important thing is that Bell Features produced more than 90% of the Canadian hybrids that came out during the reprint period, that period from about 48 until the time of the Comics Code. Let's start off with a couple of examples of these Bell reprints that use the old masthead from the wartime era. And here we have some Active Comics. Now, the original run of Active Comics ended with issue number 30 in October-November 1946. And the last two issues, 29 and 30, made use of covers, original covers by Adrian Dingle and Renee Kuhlback, respectively. But these were full of American reprints. Bell starts off its hybrid reprints, concerning Active Comics with Active 96. And here you can see it. This uses a cover from Police Comics, from Quality Police Comics, that feature Plastic Man. And these run one number same or one number above or below the issues. This 96. Here's 97. Another Police Comics cover. 98. I think this is a police cover from 99. From Quality Comics, Police Comics number 99. And 99, which is, I think, from Police Comics 100. But 104 doesn't use a police cover. It uses a splash page from Captain Kidd Comics number 25. And that makes it unusual. And this is a proper hybrid, one that uses a splash page for the cover image rather than just reprints an American cover and slaps a new title on it. Now, if we move on to Triumph Comics, here are 3 issues of hybrid Triumph. Now, originally Triumph Comics ended its run with issue number 32, which had an Adrian Dingle cover, sort of a cartoony cover, but was full of American reprints, just like the Active Comics last few issues were. The last issue to carry original Canadian content, such as Nelvana, was issue number 31, which is also famous for having the first appearance of Mr. Monster. And this appearance of Mr. Monster in costume. He just appears in the very last panel of the last story in that issue. The reprint run of Triumph seems to start off with issue number 4. And here we have issue number 4, which uses a cover from Man Comics number 4. And issue number 5 uses a typical sort of Marvel cover at the time from Man Comics number 6. But issue number 10 uses a splash page from Kid Colt number 11. And in Comics database you can find some pictures of hybrids from the Dime Comics title and masthead, which also were produced by Bell. Probably the best way to make up a survey with a good sampling of these Canadian hybrids from that reprint period is to look at some of them by genre. Let's start off with some funny animals and cartoonish type covers. Here we have a 3-issue run of Amazing Animals 15, 16, and 17. These were published by Ehlil Publishing, EHLIL, which was a subsidiary of Bell Features, and it had its address on Church Street in Toronto. 15 here uses a splash page from Super Rabbit Comics number 13 from September of 1948. 16 has a cover I can't trace, but it's definitely a splash page or even just a panel from a Wacky Duck story. 17 uses the cover from Wacky Duck number 2 from October 1948. Something I want to point out in issue 15, and I found this only in one other hybrid book, is a parody of the American Dell logo. You can see it just here. It looks exactly like that Dell logo on the US comics, but Bell Features has changed the word Dell to Bell. And I also found this on another funny animal comic, which is Animal Tunes number 6, which uses the panel from Funland Comics number 1, Croydon 1945. And collectors of all Canadian Weka comics recognize the interior of Funland 1 as, here it is, as one of the coverless comics published by Century Publications, which is a branch of Superior Publications in 1946 that were shipped over and sold in the UK. Now, Animal Tunes uses a panel, not a splash page, for its cover. Here it is again. This is a panel from inside the comic. And here is the Skunky that was put out by Century. You can see a 1 shilling sticker on it and the stamping of a Century publication right across the top. Let's look at a couple more cartoony type books, such as Fun Parade number 45, which uses the cover from Millie the Model number 28. Here's Cartoon Capers number 22, which uses the cover from My Friend Irma number 8 from April 51. And a couple of comic tunes, again hybrid titles, created by Bell Features, a couple of comic tunes, number 39, which uses the cover from My Friend Irma number 13 from December 51. And here's 40, which uses a splash page from Rib Tickler Comics number 6 from January-February 1947. So you can see what makes these Canadian hybrids up, how they are put together. They're distinctive looking covers that have new titles and either use an American cover image or a brand new image from a splash page or just an internal panel and slap them on the cover and put out comics that you won't find in the price guide. And this is what makes them so interesting for me to collect. Finding out where the covers came from and just enjoying them as some uniquely Canadian mashups of American comics. Let's keep going with this exploration of Canadian hybrids and look at some examples from the Western genre. Here's a run of Canadian cowboy comics. Here's Cowboy Trails, number 32. And it uses an image of the Black Rider and his horse called Satan from All Western Winners number 3 from February 49. And it reduces that cover image and adds some incidental characters in the foreground. Number 33 uses the cover image from Gunhawk number 17, which came out in October 51. 34 uses a splash page from Western Outlaws and Sheriffs 64, which is from December 50. Cowboy Trails number 35 uses the cover from Tex Taylor number 6, which came out in July of 1949. And 36, the last issue, uses the cover from Wild Western number 10, which is April 1950. Here's a quick look at a run of Ranger Trails comics, again Canadian hybrids, numbers 15 to 18. And number 15 probably uses a splash page for the cover. I can't trace it. 16 uses a cover from Love Trails, number 1 from December 49. 17 uses a splash page from Kid Cold Outlaw number 12, which came out in January 51. And 18 uses a cover from Kid Cold Outlaw number 17, which came out in November 1951. Next up is a run of Super Duper comics. Now, this has the same title, Super Duper, as the Effie Howard one-shot that came out in the spring of 1947 and contained previously unpublished stories that were published in full color, featuring Nelvana and the first full Mr. Monster story, which inspired Mr. Gilbert to go on to create his revival run of Mr. Monster, Fred Kelly's original creation. But this run has nothing to do with it, and it came out 3 years later after the Super Duper number 3 by F.E. Howard. These 3 issues are number 19, which uses the cover from Black Hawk number 33 from October 1950, with the stories inside are from Black Hawk number 35. Number 192, one of my favorites, uses the cover from Nemora number 3, and the 194 reprints the cover from Men's Adventures number 11. Here's a run of Canadian Slam Bang comics from the reprint period. Now, Slam Bang Comics had its original American run of 7 issues put out by Fawcett in 1940. Bell Features put out 2 issues, number 7 and 8, during the Wake-Up period, that's the wartime period, 1946, with issue number 7 containing previously unpublished full-color Bell Features stories. This was a time when Bell was trying to compete with American comics and tried putting out full-color stories that it thought could stand up against the American comics. Now, issue 8 had a new Rene Colback cover, but contained only American reprints. Both of these issues, put out by Bell in 1946, made use of the original Slam Bang masthead from the early Fawcett issues. To my knowledge, there is no issue number 9. And the FECA, the reprint period run, begins with issue number 10, which uses a splash panel from Police Comics number 97, came out in December of 1949. Number 11 uses the cover from Red Warrior number 2 from March 1951. And here's issue number 12, which uses the cover from The Kellys, a comic called The Kellys, number 23, which was put out in January 1950. Number 15, the last issue of the run, uses a splash from Slick Chick Comics number 3, which came out in 1947. Now let's look at a run of World's Greatest Comics. Now these ran from number 10 to number 16. These are the issues that I have. Number 10, which uses a splash from Black Hawk 32 and reprints the contents of that issue of number 32. Number 11 uses a panel, not a splash, but actually a smaller panel from inside the story, from Wilbur Comics, number 33, from October 1950. Number 12 reprints the cover and content of Journey into Unknown Worlds, number 6, from August 51. And 16 reprints the content from Red Warrior number 1, but the image, I can't trace it. I remember seeing it somewhere in a Marvel Western, but I got to track it down again. Now, the last example of hybrid issues put out by Bell Features that I like to look at is a couple of Zoot. It was just Zoot, not Zoot Comics, like the Fox series with Israel or Jungle covers, but just Zoot. Now here's number 11. This effectively uses a splash page from the 4th story in JoJo Comics number 13, which came out in May of 1948. Number 13 reprints stories from Fox's Blue Beetle number 45, but takes a splash from a story in Blue Beetle number 46 that was called The Toga Terror. And it puts it on the cover and puts the title from a story in number 45 Adventures in the Gobi Desert onto it, so it really mashes things up. And that's the last comic I'd like to look at. So there you have a quick survey of some Bell Features hybrid comics. A lot of them use internal splashes from the American comics and throw on a new masthead, a new title. And this is what makes them so interesting to collect. You're never sure what you're going to get. And there's always a bit of detective work involved in trying to figure out what you actually get. And this is what makes it fun, and that all makes collecting these hybrid comics interesting and worthwhile. So I hope you'll take a closer look at these, and when you see them, know that they're not Canadian whites, but they're comics from the Canadian reprint period, and try to figure out what's going on. And maybe one day they'll appear in Overstreet, and we'll know more about them. Thanks very much. As a bonus appendix, I'd like to present about a dozen or so Canadian hybrid covers that I think are really effective and that you won't find down in the States, so making them highly collectible. First is Superb Comics number 44. Now this uses a cover image from Buccaneers number 21, but I think it effectively removes the background with all those people in it and puts in a blank background which really focuses on the image of the dancer alone, making it really effective. Next is Jubilee 17, which is a Phantom Lady cover. That alone makes it collectible, and it uses Phantom Lady 15, a splash from Phantom Lady 15, the fourth splash in the comic, and places that on the cover. And this cover of Jubilee you will not find, this Phantom Lady cover you will not find like this in any American comic. Next issue is Gallant number 19, another Phantom Lady cover, and this uses an image from All Top Comics number 14. Next issue, my last Phantom Lady cover, it's Terrific Adventure number 13, and it uses a splash page image, the third splash page in in All Top Comics number 8, and cuts out that splash image, makes it bigger, and throws it right on the cover. Again, a cover you won't find in the States. Next issue is, well, not really a comic. It's the size of a comic, but it's more of a gag cartoon collection and not really comic stories. And it's priced at 25 cents, like a lot of the gag collections were. And this actually uses the cover of Flaming Love, actually a splash from Flaming Love number 4, the first splash in the comic, and takes out that main image, adds a little bit to it to balance the page out, and produces a really effective image on the cover. And again, you won't find on any cover below the border. Next, we have Crack Adventures, number 23, and this uses a splash from Blue Beetle 46, the third splash in the comic in Blue Beetle 46, which features a story of a hero called the Puppeteer. Next is Jungle Drums number 19, and this uses a splash from JoJo Comics number 21, the second splash in the comic, and takes that main image of JoJo out with a bow and puts it right on the cover. Next is Teen Ventures, and this is Teen Ventures number 17, and it uses another JoJo Comics splash, the second splash in JoJo Comics number 2 this time, which features a hero called Electro. Next comic is Zoot number 12, and this uses a splash from Young King Cole volume 2 number 5, takes that splash image off the page and throws it right on the cover for dramatic effect. Next issue is Stampede Comics number 17, which takes a splash page, the fourth splash page in Kid Cold Outlaw Comics number 12, and puts that colorful image on a white cover, making it very effective. Next issue, it's All Top Comics, the Canadian All Top, number 31. And this uses a splash page, the second splash page, in Marvel Tales, number 97. Next issue is Corral Comics, number 15. And this uses a splash from Annie Oakley, number 3. In the first splash, when you open up the cover, takes that image and throws it on a white background to make the cover for Corral Comics, number 15. And here we have Torchy number 7, which takes a splash page, the third splash page in American Comics, in American Torchy Comics number 6, and makes a cover out of that. Again, this is a Torchy cover that you will not find on an American comic, so it makes it highly, highly collectible. And the last one I want to show you is Campus Comics number 6, which uses a splash page from a Torchy story in Modern Comics number 10. And that's a second splash page, and again makes what I think is a fantastic cover. So look for these hybrids because they're unique covers, and I think they're very highly collectible.